All right, 10, 11, and 12, we're still using the sum and difference identities. We're just going to work them backwards this time. So again, you're going to want your sum and difference ones. So if I have the sign of A plus B, I'm going to change it to the sine of A, cosine of B, plus cosine of A, sine of B, and so forth. Normally just using the sine and the cosine ones, but keep those handy. We're going to take it from this form, put it into this form, and simplify our equations. So, first of all, we have cosine of x plus 2 pi plus cosine of x minus 2 pi equals 1. So for cosine of A plus B, we're going to take the cosine of A, cosine of B, minus sine of A, sine of B. So, cosine of x cosine of 2 pi minus sine of x sine of 2 pi. So that's just for this part right here. Plus, this time we have the cosine of x minus 2 pi. So it's going to be the cosine of x cosine of 2 pi, but it's going to change to plus because that sign will be different, because if you look at your formula, it'll be a plus in there. So I'm going to have cosine of x cosine of 2 pi. Since this is a minus, this is going to change to plus sine of x sine of 2 pi. And of course, that's still going to equal the 1 that I had way on the end. Looking at that, the signs are going to cancel out. So this will cancel this out. These two are the same. So I'm going to have 2 cosine of x cosine of 2 pi equals 1. Cosine of 2 pi. Now you're going to look up in your table that we've used before. I'm going to look up the value for cosine of 2 pi. So cosine of 2 pi way down at the bottom is equal to 1. So I'm going to replace this with 1. So I get 2 cosine of x equals 1. Solving that, cosine of x equals 1/2. We are going to do it with that weird notation that we have up here with the 2k pi, since it's the cosine. If I look for 1/2, we have pi over 3. And if I keep looking for 1/2, I have 5 pi over 3. So we're going to have, didn't mean to put the comma there, pi over 3 plus 2k pi, with k being an element of z, or 5 pi over 3 plus 2k pi, with k being an element of z. And those would be our solutions. So number 11 is going to be the same kind of thing. This time we're using the sine ones. So on your sine ones, you have sine, cosine, cosine, sine. So sine of x cosine of 2 pi. This is plus, so plus cosine of x sine of 2 pi, plus, this is going to be sine of x cosine of 2 pi. Since this is a minus, we got a minus cosine of x sine of 2 pi equals -1. Get all that in there. Looking at that, this time cosine of x sine of 2 pi is going to cancel out. These two are the same, so we're going to have 2 sine of x cosine of 2 pi equals -1. Cosine of 2 pi, we looked that up before, but if you look it up again, cosine of 2 pi is equal to 1. So we're going to put a 1 in here. So we get 2 sine of x equals -1. So sine of x equals -1/2. And we're going to look those up. So sine of x equals -1/2 at 7 pi over 6. Also equals -1/2 at 11 pi over 6. So we're going to have 7 pi over 6 plus 2k pi, with k being an element of z, or 11 pi over 6 plus 2k pi, with k being an element of z. Those would be the values where our sine of x equals negative 1/2. Number 12, we're doing cosine and cosine again. So when we have the cosine, cosine, we have cosine, cosine, and sine, sine, opposite sign as that is. So we're going to have cosine of x, cosine of pi over 2. This is going to be minus sine of x, sine of pi over 2. Then we're going to have minus, and then I better use parentheses because there's a minus sign here. So I'm going to have cosine of x, cosine of pi over 2. Since this is a minus, this will be a plus. Sine of x, sine of pi over 2 equals the square root of 3. So getting rid of our parentheses, we have cosine of x, cosine of pi over 2 minus sine of x, sine of pi over 2 minus cosine of x, cosine of pi over 2 minus sine of x, sine of pi over 2 equals our square root of 3. So the cosines are going to cancel out. That will cancel this out. I will have 2 of these. So negative 2 sine of x, sine of pi over 2 equals the square root of 3. So sine of, whoops, before I do that, I was going to divide, but I might as well substitute in first. What is the sine of pi over 2? Sine of pi over 2 is 1. So looking that up on my table, sine of pi over 2 is equal to 1. You can cancel that out then. Negative 2 sine of x equals square root of 3. Dividing by our negative 2, sine of x equals negative square root of 3 over 2 then. So looking up on our table for where does the sine equal negative square root of 3 over 2, we have 4 pi over 3 plus 2k pi, with k being an element of z, or keep looking at my table, negative square root of 3 over 2 is 5 pi over 3 plus my 2k pi, with k being an element of z. So either 4 pi over 3 or 5 pi over 3 plus my 2k pi, since that's my period for sine, and those should be your answers.